We wanted to be able to have this happy family like everybody else does. My name is Arden Summers, and I am the daughter of Alisa and Trevor Summers. I was really hoping that my family would be back together and healthy and fixed.
Alisa Summers, she is a loving mother of 5 children.
It's a tragic family story, and they're breaking up and getting divorced.
Trevor Summers wanted control. He controlled Alisa, and he controlled his children.
We later learned through our investigation that Trevor Summers is using his children to play against his wife.
He was trying to persuade her not to get divorced, and he was going to talk her into it no matter how long it took.
She went through hell and back, all because of what my dad did.
When Trevor Summers enters the home and Alisa Summers ultimately wakes up, that's when the violence occurs.
I am here with Alisa at her house, where I'm not supposed to be. And I woke Alisa up, and I have been holding her against her will.
He used her cell phone to record a video making a statement about what occurred.
I did tie her up to keep her from contacting the authorities and give me enough time to get out of town.
Eventually, he takes her out of the house, correct?
Alisa agrees to go with him because she knew that was the only way she was going to be able to stay alive at that point.
He goes to the Walgreens, she's in the car, and there is an employee at the Walgreens taking a smoke break.
We received a 911 call from a witness at the Walgreens where Miss Summers attempted to flee from the vehicle.
Some chick just ran out of the dude's car. Looked like her hands were tied, and she ran out of the car screaming, "Help me." And he just grabbed her and put her back in the car.
So this is a potential kidnapping, but could be headed towards something far more serious, a potential homicide.
That's certainly a possibility and something that's in the back of our heads. The 911 call occurs approximately 9 p.m. on Saturday. Then the following morning, myself and another detective are able to interview 4 of the 5 children.
There was just a knock on the door, and just 2 tall men and asked, "Do you know where your parents are?" And I said no. They were talking about how they're doing this investigation and try to find my parents, and all I'm thinking is, oh my God, what happened?
The interview with the children was a very delicate situation.
And he was hurting Mom.
Well, how do you know he was hurting Mom?
I heard it. She was screaming.
Did he tie her arms up or feet or
something else?
He tied both of her arms and body.
When the children are giving these details, it's just surreal. It was shocking. This is the bedroom window that Trevor Summers was allowed into the home through.
Sergeant Christopher Steele with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
And who opened that window for him?
His eldest daughter would have been in the home unlocking and making it ready for him to enter.
My dad had sat me down and discussed reconciling with my mom and fixing the marriage and bringing our family back together.
Arden Summers was eager to help her father make her family whole again. Her parents, Alisa and Trevor Summers, had separated after 15 years of marriage, and there was a restraining order keeping them apart. Arden and her 4 siblings had been living with their dad.
He wanted me, my younger siblings, to go over to my mom's house and spend the night, and then I would let my dad in the window after my siblings and my mom went to bed.
Arden thought her dad could then talk her mom into getting back together. But Trevor Summers' supposed attempt at reconciliation was actually an act of manipulation, using his children as pawns in a plot involving kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder that would go on for 55 hours.
The clock was digital clock, and it said exactly 3 a.m. I was startled, awake.
Alisa Mathewson, formerly Alisa Summers, will never forget the disorienting fear that began in the early morning hours of March 11th, 2017. She was awakened in her pitch-black bedroom. Two of her children were lying beside her, 7-year-old Bryn and 5-year-old Grady.
And I felt my face was wet, and I started screaming, "Who's in my room? What are you doing here?" I'm in a panic, an absolute panic.
Her estranged husband, Trevor, had entered her home in Valrico, Florida, dripping water on her head, and was standing over her.
And I'm still screaming, and he says, "Calm down, it's just me." I just start in full panic throwing things from my end table at him, and he grabbed my ankles and pulled me off the end of the bed.
This must be terrifying.
It's terrifying. Bryn and Grady are running out of my room screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, don't kill Mommy."
But how did it come to this? The couple first met in 1995 in high school in suburban Philadelphia and started dating 3 years later.
He was spontaneous and charming and just seemed that he always put me first.
The couple married in 2001, eager to begin their life together.
He wanted to start a family right away. When I had Arden, it was everything I envisioned for my life. I envisioned myself being a stay-at-home mom.
And then over the years, it was Arden times 5. You ended up with 5 kids, right?
Yes.
After Arden came Landon, Bryn, Grady, and Cooper.
The more kids, it seemed that the more love, the more happiness. I wanted to have this picture-perfect life.
Alisa says Trevor initially started a landscape and pool design company, and he dabbled in real estate. But he really fancied himself as an entrepreneur.
He would open up businesses for a little while, and then he would move on to a new business.
The family moved several times, says Alisa, as Trevor chased opportunities. From Pennsylvania to Florida, to Vegas, to California, and eventually back to the Sunshine State, where the children were homeschooled.
We would very often host people, have sleepovers, friends over, birthday parties, all kinds of stuff.
Arden, now 20, remembers good times.
We would go to the beach. We had a beach fairly close to our house, play video games as a family and board games, stuff like that.
Arden says while she was close to her mother, she had a special bond with her father.
I was definitely the definition of a daddy's girl. We would go out on little dates together, go out for dinners, just him and I.
Meanwhile, Alisa says her relationship with Trevor was changing. With each move and birth of another child, she says her husband was slowly taking control of her life.
I had to wear what he would select. I couldn't have men on my Facebook page.
She couldn't even sit next to a man in church or anywhere.
I couldn't ride in a car alone with a man. I was to have no communication with any men other than Trevor.
Alisa was also overhearing snippets of Trevor's business conversations.
There were some things that just weren't adding up.
Alisa says Trevor was frequently in financial trouble, not paying debts and bouncing checks. He was arrested several times, but she says he always blamed his problems on others, and the crisis would seem to pass.
Every single time it would happen, it would be, it's a misunderstanding.
He's having these incidents with the law. What are you thinking?
Yeah, at the same time, I was walking on eggshells. Don't question him. Okay. And smile and nod.
Did he have a temper?
As long as we stayed in his good graces, then it was fine.
In 2016, Alisa finally had enough and asked for a divorce. Trevor begged her to stay, wanting to keep the family together. Alisa agreed, but she says Trevor's possessive behavior worsened.
He took my cell phone. He took my car. I was being held in my own home as like a prisoner. It became very apparent that this is domestic violence. This is domestic abuse. I need to start working on my plan.
She wanted to escape, but Trevor Summers had his own plans for Alisa.
I had been just stuck staying in the house with him watching me.
By October 2016, Alisa says she felt like an inmate in her own home, with her husband Trevor monitoring her every move.
He was always with me for several weeks.
Until one day, Trevor finally left to go to work. That's when Alisa called a domestic violence organization.
And I said, you know, these are the things that are going on. My husband hasn't gone to work in weeks. This is the first time I've been alone. And the more and more I asked them and I talked to them about this, they said, your situation is very serious.
But before Alisa could get out of the house that day, Trevor burst through the door.
He came in and he attacked me. And every time I would try to get away from him, he'd block me from leaving.
Alisa says that after some time, Trevor reluctantly agreed to let her leave with the children, and she sought refuge in the home of a friend.
He was going crazy over this, and he found out where I was, and he would be showing up there.
After a week there, she felt safer moving with her children to a shelter for abused women, leaving everything behind.
We had nothing. We had the clothes on our backs.
Over the course of several months, Alisa started rebuilding her life.
When I got out of the shelter, I got myself a home and a car and a job as well.
She filed for divorce and even tried online dating. But Trevor was not out of her life, as they shared custody of the children.
I was forced to see him twice a week to exchange children with him.
By January 2017, Alisa says Trevor seemed resigned to the fact their marriage was over. And about a month later, Alisa says she agreed to go by Trevor's home to sign the divorce papers.
So you're in the house, what happens?
He said that he just needed to talk to me. He was like, I have to get everything off of my chest so we can get divorced. I have to tell you, I've had multiple affairs. I've really messed up.
Trevor was also in serious legal trouble, facing real prison time. According to court records, he was awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty to wire fraud charges for one of his failed business ventures. His perfectly controlled life was quickly imploding.
As I was leaving, he said, you're not going anywhere. With one hand holding me down, he used the other hand and pulled a knife and held it right up at my chest by my throat.
How long was the blade?
It was a machete.
And he's got this machete right under.
Right at my neck. And he says, I won't tie you up if you just stay still and listen to me. And then he held me there for a few hours.
Eventually, Alisa says, Trevor agreed to let her go after she calmed him down and promised not to call the police, a promise she did not keep.
I immediately called 911 when I left his home.
But when investigators interviewed Trevor, he denied threatening Alisa's life.
The police didn't believe me. I wasn't left with any marks. There was no evidence of what I was saying.
The sheriff's office treated it as a concern from the beginning.
Hillsborough County Sheriff Sergeant Christopher Steele was not involved in responding to the 911 call, but says investigators were looking into the case.
It's not like we could have simply arrested him that day based on the statements of just the two that were involved. We needed more.
Both Alisa and Trevor filed for restraining orders against each other, and Alisa says Trevor used the incident to turn their children against her.
He told the children, I lied to the police. She is trying to get me thrown in prison.
He told them their mother was responsible for the marriage falling apart.
He would constantly talk about how she was supposedly cheating on him. He, acted so heartbroken.
What did you think of your mother?
I felt like she was awful.
Then, just 2 days later, Alisa arrived home to find the place vandalized.
There was graffiti all over the walls. There was Kool-Aid poured on my bed.
The Kool-Aid was his idea. The chalk and writing on the walls was my idea.
What had you written on the walls?
I had written things like traitor. I wrote thanks for being an ass right above the bed.
Alisa was incredulous when she learned Trevor had convinced Arden to take part.
It was devastating. My kids had a key to my home, and they used their key and did this.
A few weeks later, Alisa got an unexpectedly cheery phone call from Arden.
And Arden says, Mom, we really miss you. I'm sorry, I've been thinking of you. I want to come over and just you and I talk things through, hang out like old times.
Within days, Arden, Bryn, and Grady were back visiting Alisa, while Cooper and Landon were at Trevor's house.
I especially was feeling like Arden was starting to come around.
Alisa says she and Arden had no idea. They both were being manipulated by Trevor.
He had mentioned before that he was really hoping to reconcile with her and to put the family back together and be almost like the savior of the family.
The goal was something noble in a way that you were participating in, that maybe they can get them back together and we can be a family again.
Yes.
So, on the evening of March 10th, 2017, as Alisa was in bed with Bryn and Grady, Arden was in another room, secretly texting her father.
Just checked, she's fast asleep.
Letting him know the coast was clear for him to enter Alisa's home. Just after midnight on March 11th, 2017, Trevor Summers left his 3-year-old son Cooper home alone, asleep in bed, and drove with 12-year-old Landon to his estranged wife's house, where Arden was already waiting.
He told me that he was going to talk to my mom.
Following his instructions, Arden had left this window open for Trevor. They passed each other as she went out to wait in the car with Landon. That's when Alisa says she remembers waking up to water dripping on her face.
At that point, it's full on terror.
Alisa says Trevor dragged her to the living room. Grady and Bryn, the 2 young children who were in bed with her, woke up and screamed.
He looks right at them and he says, "Get back in your mother's room. Don't come out."
Alisa says they struggled as she tried to escape.
And I get my hand onto the door and he'd grab me and throw me backwards.
Are you wondering, where is Arden?
Yes, I'm thinking Arden's going to hear this. Arden's going to call 911. Like, where is she?
Arden was sitting in the car, hopeful that her parents would come out after talking, and they would all return to Trevor's house together. But around 5 a.m., Trevor sent a text that the plan had changed.
She walks in and doesn't even look at me. And that's when I realized she's not going to call 911. She wants him to be there.
Arden says her dad told her to drive Landon, Bryn, and Grady back to his house and wait. Then 14 years old, Arden's only driving experience had been in a parking lot.
It was very terrifying. I was doing exactly the speed limit, and I just followed all the traffic laws to not get pulled over.
Once the children were out of the house, that's when it even escalated further. He threw me onto my bed and took these scarves and wrapped me, my hands, my wrists together. He is tying me to the bed frame with the Christmas lights and crisscrossing them across my body to hold me down.
That's when Trevor told her why he was there.
I came to say goodbye. I am leaving. I've chartered a boat. I'm going out into international water, and I'm going to disappear.
Alisa says he claimed he had millions of dollars in offshore bank accounts. Alisa didn't believe any of it. She says she had a plan, stay quiet, and perhaps he would let her go.
I don't want to infuriate this man. Just sitting back, listening, and letting him do the talking.
She says over the course of several hours, Trevor raped her twice.
Did he have any kind of a weapon on him?
He did. A razor blade.
Alisa says she felt drowsy because Trevor made her take cold medicine.
He had been using NyQuil throughout the day to keep me sedated.
Alisa says Trevor tied her ankles and wrists behind her with the scarves and a nylon rope.
I was in excruciating pain.
He used her thumb to unlock her cell phone and recorded those videos.
I am here with Alisa at her house. She's virtually unharmed. She's got a couple bruises today, but from tying her up.
Alisa says Trevor told her he was making the videos so she could prove to authorities he was there before taking the boat trip. But Trevor didn't immediately leave. It was around 5:40 p.m. when he came back into the room.
He put a pillow over my face, and he pushed down with all of his upper body. And I thought about my kids, and I lost consciousness.
Moments later, Alisa says she remembers the pillow being removed.
And he looked at me, and I said, please, I'll do anything. Please don't kill me. He says, you agree to go with me? I said, yes, I'll go with you.
To the boat, to the islands?
Yes.
Alisa says she still thought the boat story was a lie, but agreed to go with him to buy time. With her hands tied, Alisa says Trevor loaded her into her SUV. Later, he went into that Walgreens to buy more cold medicine. It was the moment she'd been patiently waiting for.
I pulled the door handle to open the door. And so I'm running and I'm stumbling through this parking lot. I could hear him coming at me and grab me.
Did he lift you off the ground?
Lift me off to the ground and pushed me back, got me all the way back into the car.
That's when that Walgreens employee called 911.
Ran out of the car screaming, help me. Trying to get the license. It's a dark blue SUV. He's pulling out right now.
The employee managed to get that license plate number. Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputies realized it was Alisa's vehicle and began a statewide search. As they sped into the night, Alisa says Trevor was irate.
He's screaming at me. Oh, you agreed to go with me. Why are you doing this? We cut from over here all the way across over to here. He said that's for getting out of the car at the Walgreens.
Alisa says Trevor spent hours driving along back roads down the Tampa Bay coast. They stopped several times, including at a secluded rural area where they hid out for over a day. Here, he wrote letters detailing what he'd done, a confession, and this chilling farewell to their children. Alisa read an excerpt.
We should have never gone down the road of divorce that tore our family apart, so we have ended it for your sake, and will be watching you from heaven.
Alisa says Trevor raped her 2 more times.
I just need to stay alive. I just need to stay alive.
On the morning of March 13th, Trevor drove to Little Harbor, a resort area where they used to go as a family. Alisa says Trevor pulled the SUV over, parked right behind a dumpster, and climbed into the back seat.
and a rope came over my head and came around my neck.
Is there any doubt in your mind what he's attempting to do at that moment?
No, he is. He is killing me behind a dumpster. Suddenly, he's behind me and he lets go and he dove through the car, jumped into the driver's seat, and took off.
Trevor believed he'd been spotted.
There's no talking. He is laser focused and he is driving.
Panicked, he pulled into this carport.
He pulls out the razor blade and he starts slitting his throat. I'm screaming at him to stop. And at this point then the police come up around, guns drawn, screaming.
Alisa remembers an officer helping her.
He puts me right into the front seat and he gets in and he takes off, goes down this road.
Just takes off and boom, you're out of here.
That fast. Suddenly, I'm saved. I've been pulled from hell.
Following Alisa's rescue, investigators took these photographs. While still receiving medical attention, Alisa told her story.
My hands were behind my back and he slit my wrists and I just kept begging and begging, please don't kill me, please don't kill me.
Trevor Summers also spoke to investigators from his hospital bed, where his wounds were stitched up. Law enforcement says it amounted to a confession.
What did you tie her up with? Just some rope, some nylon rope. And I just grabbed the pillow and put it over her face.
But bizarrely, Trevor also claimed Alisa voluntarily went along with him.
And she willingly let me tie her up.
Trevor was later charged with 11 counts, including attempted murder, kidnapping, sexual battery, and child neglect. Trevor pleaded not guilty, but Alisa's ordeal was far from over. She would come face to face with Trevor yet again at his trial.
Learn more about Alisa's 55-hour ordeal at 48hours.com.
I'm not afraid of him anymore. And I'm going to say, this is what happened and this is what you did.
By 2022, 5 years had passed since Trevor Summers' arrest on charges including attempted murder, kidnapping, and sexual battery. During that time, the couple's divorce was finalized. Now, after legal and COVID-related delays, a jury would decide if Trevor's mission had been to kill Alisa or to reconcile with her.
There was no murderous intent. He stopped. Otherwise, she would be dead.
Anthony Marchese, Trevor Summers' court-appointed attorney, says his client believes he did nothing illegal.
So in his mind, he could see consent. He would think that he could show everyone that no crime was committed.
Even though she's tied up, even though there's been alleged physical violence, he still believed that the sex they had was consensual?
Yes, I mean, in his mind, if there's tying up or other things happen, those were temporary, then from there she would consent. I've never had a client like Mr. Summers. He was always a gentleman, always very polite and very intelligent, but he doesn't understand the distinction between consent and acquiescence.
Marchese was the latest of 7 different lawyers who had been on and off the case.
Trevor Summers' plan was always to take Alisa and to harm her that night.
Jennifer Johnson and Jessica O'Connor, prosecutors with the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office, built the case against Trevor Summers.
The strongest evidence that we have was the post-Miranda statement.
And I just grabbed the pillow and put it over her face.
The handwritten confession, as well as the videotaped confession.
And I woke Alisa up, and I have been holding her against her will.
Those pieces of evidence would play a crucial role as Trevor Summers' trial began in August 2022.
Alisa Summers thought she was living out the last few days of her life. She believed that the defendant, Trevor Summers, was going to kill her.
The testimony from Mrs. Summers will be that she was tied up, that she had no alternative. But there's some inconsistencies.
This case, in many ways, rests on your shoulders, your ability to deliver. So as you take the stand, what's going through your mind?
Oh gosh, what's going through my mind was just tell them what happened.
He used the Christmas lights to tie me to the bed rails and used the vacuum cord to go underneath the mattress.
Over the course of several hours, the prosecution questioned Alisa regarding Trevor's actions.
Being hogtied, the pain was so incredible. He pushed down the pillow on my face.
The prosecutors anticipated the defense would question if Alisa was raped or consented to having sex. So they raised it first, with Alisa detailing the alleged assaults.
He started to remove my bottoms and proceeded to have sex with me.
Did you tell him no?
No.
Why is it that you did not tell him no or fight back?
Because I didn't want to get hurt.
You finish your testimony, and now it's time for the defense attorney to cross-examine you. What happens?
So we're taking a break to then do cross-examination, and Mr. Marchese stands up and gets the judge's attention.
Marchese informed Judge Christopher Sabella that he had just been fired. His replacement to now cross-examine Alisa would be the man on trial for attempting to kill her, Trevor Summers himself.
The man you believe kidnapped you and on at least 2 occasions attempted to murder you is now going to do what?
Stand in front of me and ask me questions.
That was his way to manipulate and to abuse her again, to represent himself.
Defense attorney Marchese was permitted to remain as standby counsel, but he was not permitted to speak with Trevor while court was in session. Alisa's questioning by her ex-husband, her alleged tormentor, went on for more than 4 hours. Much of it focused on the issue of consent.
Did I threaten you or force you to have sex with me?
At times, Alisa refused to look at Trevor, focusing instead on the jury and objects in the courtroom.
I was in my head, starting off. Him standing in front of me and questioning me about the things he did to me, how is this possible? And then as it went on, my confidence built.
You did tie me up, you did attack me, and you did break into my home when I was sleeping. You raped me.
So you're calling it rape?
It is. That is the definition of rape, to come into someone's home and attack them and tie them up and then have sex with them. That is the definition of rape.
That was probably the most powerful situation in the entire trial.
Trevor also questioned some of his own children, not shown on camera, about the events that night. Bryn, 13 years old at the time of trial.
Do you remember, Ms. Bryn, if I was yelling anything back at Mommy?
No.
And Arden, 19 at the trial.
Arden, did you ever see us physically fighting in the home when you came?
Not physically, no.
Sergeant Edward Remia was asked about that hospital interview he conducted with Trevor after he was treated for the self-inflicted knife wound. Summers argued that despite seeming coherent and agreeing to be interviewed, he was not in stable enough condition to have been questioned.
Did you see me before the surgery?
I'm not aware that you had any surgery.
Did you notice a large cut and stitches and bandages on my neck?
Correct. Again, I think we're probably going to differ on our definition of getting stitches and surgery.
Now the man that you interviewed is cross-examining you. Had you ever had that happen in your career before?
I've never had that happen before.
Never?
Never. It just poses, a unique set of circumstances when he's interviewing his own children, when he's interviewing his ex-wife. What's his goal? Is this his last-ditch effort to cause any, mental anguish that he can possibly do? Or is it his last-ditch attempt to show everybody that everything was okay, that I was in control of the whole situation, and that I'm not guilty of a crime?
After 3 days of testimony in Trevor Summers' trial, closing arguments began.
What this comes down to is a scorned lover. The defendant was not willing to come to grips with his divorce.
Trevor had decided not to testify. Now his life was in his own hands, as he would have to counter the prosecution's claims.
We spent a lot of time that weekend just talking, just trying to figure things out. I'm in a confused state of mind. We're going through a divorce. We don't know what's going on.
Trevor tried to cast doubt that he was violent with Alisa in her home.
There was not broken glass or dents in walls. There's not scratches on countertops or blood splatter.
And he questioned the legitimacy of that interview he gave to police at the hospital.
If you were in that position, you would feel vulnerable. You'd feel taken advantage of. I was captive and possibly coerced.
Trevor also disputed Alisa's description of being tied up and held against her will at the Walgreens parking lot.
How do you get out of a car with your hands tied behind your back?
In the prosecution's rebuttal, Jennifer Johnson returned to the video Trevor had recorded.
I spent a lot of time with Mom the last few hours, and the things that she's told you about me being good at manipulation and control and lying is true. Tying her up.
That is Trevor Summers in a nutshell. Manipulative, lying, controlling.
It was now up to the jury to decide Trevor Summers' fate. And about 5 hours later, they had.
The verdict is read. Tell us what you heard.
And it was just guilty, all the way across. All 11 charges, a guilty. It's emotional.
By Alisa's side to support her was Jeff Mathewson, whom Alisa had met shortly before the 2017 attack.
I just had my hand on his shoulder and I was holding his hand.
Throughout it all, Jeff stood by Alisa, and they stood up together, getting married in 2018.
I think Alisa knows as long as I'm around her, she's safe, and I will protect her with my life and the kids.
Another step toward protecting the family would come about a month after the verdict, at sentencing.
I suffered horrific pain during the 55-hour ordeal.
Alisa spoke about the impact of Trevor's actions, as did several of their children, including Arden, who had been manipulated by her father into letting him into the house that night.
For 5.5 years, I've struggled with what happened to my family, especially for the part I took in it.
We asked Arden to read from her victim impact statement.
While no one else blamed me for what happened, I did.
The guilt, all misplaced, has caused Arden profound pain.
I've had so many issues with trusting people after what happened, and just the guilt that I lived with for so long before I finally told myself that this isn't my fault. But most of my teenage years I spent just absolutely traumatized because of him.
Arden's trauma was not lost on the judge, who addressed her directly as he prepared to give his sentence.
To Arden, you should not feel guilty for anything that you did in this case. I assure you of that.
Judge Sabella's address to Trevor Summers had quite a different tone.
The testimony and evidence that I heard clearly make you a monster in every stretch of the imagination. Mr. Trevor Summers will spend the rest of his life in Florida State Prison.
The judge sentenced him to 3 life sentences and then followed by 224 years of prison.
And what a sentence. I've never heard of a sentence of that length. Have you?
I have not.
My focus when that sentence came over were the kids, and my focus was moving forward with them.
We got it, we got it.
We got it?
Woo!
The family, once so broken, is whole again. The healing, says Alisa, is a process and ongoing.
We've already come so far.
Alisa now hopes to raise awareness of domestic abuse, sharing her experience and recovery with other victims. And she works full-time as an insurance agent. What she does not do is dwell on Trevor Summers.
I've been dealing with him since I was 19 years old. That man means nothing to me, and I'm moving forward with my life. We have the life more than I've ever envisioned us to have now.
We're on the road to kids' happiness.
Yeah! A healed family.
This is a happy ending. This is a happy story. Oh, there we go.
Eric and Corey were probably at the best place they've ever been in their marriage.
A husband and father's sudden death. His wife writes a children's book to help her kids cope with their grief.
They needed some help, and Corey needed some help.
But what's the real story behind his tragic ending? 48 Hours, next on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
The disappearance of Ray Wright was a complete mystery. Yeah! There was no explanation of why he was gone.
The first real break is when your Uncle Dean went to your father's house and found an intruder in the house. Did it strike you all as, okay, that seems too coincidental, our dad is missing, and here's a guy in his house?
Yeah, 100%. Because it was scary, so.
Ray Wright has been missing since Friday when he failed to show up for a meeting at work.
This case was a series of mysteries. You have a AM/PM soda cup, just like you would pick up at the gas station.
The soda cup was the one piece of evidence left by the burglar at the victim's residence,
in which we get some key forensic evidence.
White man.
And then that evidence is linked to a car wreck. And as ground units arrived, it was like the scene out of a movie. Inside that van is just a treasure trove of evidence.
A rain jacket covered in blood.
And a letter. I hand-delivered you your revenge. Now it's time to pay me.
All that added up to someone's got Ray.
I knew something bad was happening to him. I felt it.
It was weeks to months to then years without really knowing, right?
Years of not knowing, yeah.
Throughout the case, it was clear that many of the witnesses were afraid to come forward.
Because I'm terrified of them, all of them.
You guys are gonna get me killed. Like, can I help you? I got to go. You're gonna get me killed.
100% of the truth. What happened to Ray?
I don't know.
What happened to Ray?
I don't know. I don't know what happened to Ray.
Officers and the family are left with essentially a person that has vanished off the face of the earth.
Dean Wright was nervous.
Where's Ray?
It was Saturday morning, January 13th, 2018 in Sacramento, California.
I just wanted to know where Ray is.
Dean hadn't heard from his younger brother Ray in 2 days, highly unusual for brothers who spoke every day without fail.
All of a sudden, middle of January, there's
Nothing.
just nothing.
Nothing.
No phone calls, no texts, no social media posts.
Nothing.
Ray Wright, 55, had missed work. No one had seen or heard from him, including his daughters, Haley and Kennedy.
My sister called me and she was like, hey, like, have you heard from Dad? Like, no one's heard from him.
I immediately hung up and called him, and I called and I called and I called straight to voicemail every time.
So I was getting increasingly concerned.
Dean had repeatedly checked his brother's house in Rockland, a Sacramento suburb, and the shop Ray rented in Rio Linda for his work as a master carpenter. Nothing seemed unusual except the silence of Ray's absence.
And you didn't see his truck?
No, his truck was not there.
You're panicked at this point.
Right.
I think the first couple of days was when it really started to get real and serious.
I just felt really powerless over the situation, and it was really scary. It was the worst thing that could have ever happened.
Ray's ex-wife, Peggy Wright, was also upset.
I knew right away when he was out of touch that there was something wrong.
Although they were no longer married, Peggy still considered Ray to be the love of her life.
Was he romantic?
Oh God, he was super romantic.
They married in June 1994, and Ray became an instant dad to stepdaughter Haley, then 3 years old.
He was meant to be a father, and he was so good with her.
He was always there for me. First male role model, and he always did everything to the fullest.
Along came Kennedy nearly 3 years later. She says her father, a loving, hands-on dad, would never just up and disappear.
He was like a T-ball dad, and he would like take me like fishing, soccer dad, swim meets.
He could do it all.
Yeah, he could do it all. He was good at everything.
Yeah.
But after several good years, Peggy says, the couple found themselves drifting apart.
He was so busy working, I was busy parenting, and I also worked.
They divorced in 2001. Ray remarried and divorced again in 2009.
I think it was the end of his second marriage that kind of put him over the edge, and that's when he fell off the wagon at almost 20 years sober.
Ray Wright, a recovering alcoholic, had stayed sober for most of his adult life. But when he went missing, Peggy worried he was in trouble.
You think, oh, gosh, maybe, you know, he had a setback or something.
He was sober during your marriage.
Oh, yeah.
It was Ray's relapse after his second marriage that sparked a downward spiral, exploding one night in November 2011 when Ray got in a car and drove drunk. He slammed head-on into a vehicle, severely injuring a husband and wife. Ray, then 49, was convicted of felony DUI and sentenced to 18 months in jail.
I think that was rock bottom for him.
Yeah.
Rock bottom was getting in this devastating accident.
Yeah. And hurting people in the midst of it.
Ray immediately stopped drinking, rejoined Alcoholics Anonymous, and checked in with his sponsor every day.
I think the Ray after that time was even better than the Ray prior to that time because he wanted to be the best version of Ray Wright that he could be.
Just weeks before he went missing,
this is the last Thanksgiving.
Ray spent Thanksgiving and Christmas with his growing family, celebrations that included Ray's first granddaughter, Ashton.
That's Ashton when she was really small.
Oh, I love that.
Proud mom, Haley, was thrilled for her dad.
He was super excited. He built her a custom crib. He loved being a grandpa, and she loved Grandpa Ray.
Ray was at such a great spot in his life. He had it all.
And then he disappeared. By Saturday afternoon on January 13th, more than 48 hours had passed without a single sign of Ray. Dean Wright went back to his brother's house yet again, knocked on the door, then let himself in.
I said, hello, hello. And immediately I smelled marijuana smoke. And that's when I knew this is completely wrong, because he didn't like that. And I'm getting increasingly tense about it. So as I walked forward, I saw a cup, and that had not been there. I took another step and a half.
That's when a back door burst open.
And a guy yelled at me, get out of here. And I said, who are you? Where's Ray?
The man took a step toward Dean, he says, then turned away and ran out the back door.
I immediately called 911.
Rockland police arrived. Dean, shaken, filed a missing persons report and pointed to the soda cup on the kitchen counter, explaining that the intruder must have left it.
The cup is full of ice. It's full of soda.
Sacramento County Prosecutor Matt Chisholm.
It has a lid and a straw, and it's sweating, so it's fresh.
When did you start to fear the worst, Dean?
Then, right then. It was crushing.
And you suspected foul play?
Yes.
Ray Wright, much admired and loved by friends and family, described as generous, creative, and vibrant, had seemingly vanished with the snap of a finger.
No one has any leads as to where he is or what happened to him.
It was the frightening home invasion, just 2 days after Ray had disappeared, that seemed too coincidental, says prosecutor Matt Chisholm.
I think that raised everyone's concern to a different level.
As days go by, it becomes more suspicious.
Rockland Police Sergeant Zach Lewis briefly considered Ray's history of alcohol abuse, but dismissed the possibility of a relapse.
We checked his bank accounts. There was no activity on his bank. His vehicle had disappeared off of license plate readers. We couldn't find his vehicle anymore. His phone wasn't working. All those things led us to believe that it was more than just him not calling family members back and drinking.
Ray's family immediately organized a search.
We all met up at a Target parking lot and passed out flyers.
And then we just spread out and went in all different directions.
We were doing everything we could and exhausting everything that we could do.
The resounding question for the Wright family, echoing at all hours of the day and night: where was Ray?
Vanished without a trace.
He was last seen a week ago today.
He was driving a white Ford F-250.
10 days after his disappearance, police discovered Ray's abandoned pickup truck in a North Highlands apartment complex.
In this really high crime area.
The radio and license plates had been stripped. For police, finding Ray's vehicle was a break in the case. For Haley, it was just heartbreaking.
That was the first real piece of evidence. I was like, okay, we know something bad happened to him.
Rockland PD seized the car and collaborated with the FBI to have it processed for trace evidence.
In the back of the truck, brown stains barely visible on black carpet liner were later determined to be human blood.
That was tested for DNA against Ray Wright's toothbrushes, since we don't have a body, and it was a match.
16 days after Ray's disappearance, something happened that would shift the investigation into overdrive. It all began with a harrowing, high-speed police chase through Sacramento.
It was a very dangerous high-speed chase, speeds of up to 100 miles an hour. There was a terrible accident at the end of that pursuit.
This is one of those chases that you watch on TV and it's like, whoa.
Yes.
Except in this case, the guy who was responsible for that is much more dangerous than we even know.
The driver, pinned inside the vehicle with a broken leg, was unable to move. California Highway Patrol officers cuffed the driver, who appeared to be intoxicated. The man's name, Victor Gray. He had problems with the law before, and police arrested him this time for felony evasion and DUI.
He's taken to a hospital for treatment and is under guard and is then booked in the Sacramento County Jail.
It was Gray's expired registration with current registration sticker tabs that caught the attention of a police officer.
Like a stolen vehicle, is that what they're thinking?
Possibly. Or somebody stole a registration tab and just stuck it on their license plate.
A DMV records search showed the registration tab actually belonged to a 2016 Ford pickup truck that had recently been reported missing, along with its owner, Raymond Wright.
The registration tab is actually Ray Wright's registration tag off of his license plate. And so that's the first connection that they are able to make between Victor Gray and Ray Wright's disappearance.
And then 3 months after Ray's disappearance, another turning point in the case. Investigators got a DNA hit off that soda straw in the cup left behind by the fleeing intruder, who finally had a name. And it's one the police already knew. Victor Gray.
So now we have 2 pieces of evidence linking him to Ray Wright.
The DNA match placed Victor Gray inside Ray's home and at the center of the expanding investigation. Turned out things were about to get a lot worse for Gray because his wrecked, smoking van was a smoking gun.
Here you've got a treasure trove of evidence. Where was all of this found?
All this was located in the vehicle that Victor Gray was driving.
In the van's cluttered cargo area, Rockland PD and FBI investigators unraveled a black plastic tarp. Inside, disturbing evidence deepened the Ray Wright mystery.
The hat. You pull that hat out, Ray Wright design.
It was like a holy moment. This is huge for us.
The yellow rain jacket. That is Ray Wright's jacket. And what was found on that?
His DNA was found on that jacket.
The glasses.
The glasses are just,
heartbreaking.
and they're just broken into a bunch of pieces. His wallet, which it appeared they tried to burn.
A cell phone that's clearly been destroyed, like somebody took a hammer to it,
Yes.
right? Is that what it looked like?
That's what it looked like, yes. We had to run the serial number on the back, and it was registered to Ray Wright's cell phone carrier. We now were definitely able to tie Victor Gray to Ray Wright going missing.
But police had not found Ray. There was still a sliver of hope.
It was just really hard being patient.
It's still a hot investigation. There's still many details left to figure out.
Perhaps none more significant than Victor Gray's cell phone. It wasn't just Ray's phone in the van. Victor Gray's was there too. The violent collision ending the police chase sent Gray's cell phone sliding underneath the van's center console.
The FBI found that and was able to process it for its contents. And inside that cell phone was also a treasure trove of evidence.
Astonishingly, there was a photo of a handwritten 3-page letter, prosecutors say, from Victor Gray to someone named Bob.
And at this point, we don't know who Bob is.
It was dated January 27th, the same day as Gray's ill-fated chase with police.
And it's clear that Victor has grievances with Bob. And the grievances stem about not being paid for delivering the dude to you.
Those are his words, the dude.
Yeah. I hand-delivered you your revenge. Now it's time to pay me.
Let's talk about what was found in that phone. Text messages that seem to refer to Ray Wright's possible kidnapping at that point, right?
Yes.
It took months, but investigators eventually dug up a gold mine of evidence from Victor Gray's cell phone.
There was a text conversation with a woman who appeared to be working as a lookout for Mr. Gray.
Ray's out front of the shop, texted the woman, California Katie, in a series of misspelled texts. It was 9:50 a.m., January 11th, 2018. Yes, I'm watching out front for anything. Tracing California Katie's number found in Gray's cell phone, police identified her as Katie Bernard.
The text messages with Katie Bernard weren't valuable.
Those messages were sent the very morning Ray Wright went missing, last seen at his workshop. They revealed a plan of sorts, says Placer County District Attorney Investigator Ashley Englefield.
Ray Wright's house, probably about 30 or 40 minutes east from here.
Investigator Englefield showed us Ray Wright's former workshop in Rio Linda and its close proximity to a neighbor, Katie Bernard.
She happened to be living in a trailer next to Ray Wright's cabinet shop. So that trailer right there is where Katie Bernard was staying.
That morning, Englefield believes Katie Bernard was watching Ray's workshop from just yards away.
She was in a prime spot to be a source of intelligence for Victor Gray. She's looking out that window, and she's looking at the shop.
So where do we think Victor Gray is on that morning?
During the course of that text conversation, we think Victor is out there on the road. He's waiting for the text from Katie.
The one that would tell him when Ray Wright was alone at his shop. It came just before 10 a.m. Just you and him, hon. A few hours later, Ray Wright would disappear.
I'll see right there. We'll be right with you, okay?
Okay. Englefield brought in Katie Bernard for questioning in October 2018. Ray Wright had been missing for nearly 300 days.
If we don't have reasons for why you did certain things, and you lie to us about doing the things we know you did, it makes you look like a killer. Are you a killer?
No.
Katie Bernard would grudgingly become a pivotal witness.
What did Katie Bernard think she was doing this all for?
She told us that she was only involved because she thought that Victor Gray wanted to steal Raymond Wright's truck.
This wasn't about Ray's truck. This doesn't start and end with Victor Gray. It starts with somebody else. You're about to say it.
Who, Bob?
Katie knew the key players, including the mysterious Bob named in that letter.
Who's Bob?
Bob is my ex-boyfriend.
What's Bob's full name?
Bob Manor.
Robert Bobby Manor.
And so what's the story then? What's the whole backstory?
Ray and Bob were in a car accident.
When Ray Wright drove drunk 6 years earlier in November 2011, the married couple he struck was Robert Manor and his wife. She nearly died, and Manor suffered multiple broken bones that left him with a permanent limp and lingering pain.
He was reminded about it on a daily basis from his injuries, and he could never let it go.
After Ray's DUI conviction, he was ordered to pay more than $275,000 in restitution to Manor and his wife.
He had occasionally made payments, but not very much.
Police say Robert Manor was not a man to stiff. He was a feared methamphetamine dealer in North Sacramento, authorities say, who had done time for assault and selling drugs armed with a gun. And witnesses told police that Manor was enraged and wanted revenge against Ray Wright.
That gives you a motive, right?
The money and the revenge, mostly.
A few months before Ray went missing, in a staggering coincidence, police believe that Manor, while visiting Katie, just happened to see the man who had smashed into him driving drunk years ago. The man he blamed for shattering his life.
He came over one day and Ray was there.
Ray Wright was working in his shop about 30 feet away. That might have been the moment, Englefield says, when Manor lit the fuse, igniting his plot for revenge that had smoldered for years.
Truck is gone.
Yes. And Ray's been missing.
Ray's gone.
Yes.
Katie told police when she heard the news that Ray was missing, she realized this wasn't just about stealing his truck.
I'm freaking out.
Why?
Because, like, it's obvious, you know, like...
That what?
That he's been taken or hurt or something. The cops can tell me. Victor and Bob.
Katie says Victor Gray later told her that morning, armed with a gun, he approached Ray Wright and punched him.
I think he then somehow secured Ray's hands, and he was able to put Ray into his own truck.
Then, Englefield says, Victor Gray drove Ray's truck with a bloodied Ray Wright in the back to Manor's house a few miles away.
I don't know what they did with Ray.
Afraid she might be implicated in Ray Wright's disappearance, Katie told investigators she confronted Robert Manor.
She asked him about whether he killed Ray Wright, and he tells her that he did. Manor then grabbed her around the neck, choked her, and told her never to speak about this again.
According to Chisholm, Manor's chilling admission came in just 3 words.
He says, I got him.
I got him.
I got him. We heard that quote from Mr. Manor from multiple witnesses.
I didn't do anything.
I'm not saying you did.
Like Tessa Trimble.
I'm not involved in it.
I'm not saying that you are.
In an audio-only police interview, Ashley Englefield spoke to Tessa, a massage therapist who had treated Robert Manor's injuries from the accident. She says they eventually became romantically involved.
Tessa was very hesitant to speak initially, and she was also very afraid of Bobby.
You're gonna get me killed. I have to go. How do I get out of here?
It would take some time, but Tessa began to talk.
She received a phone call from Bobby, and Bobby had told her, hey, come over to the house, we need to talk. According to her, what she thought at the time was that they were going to talk about their relationship.
But when she saw Manor, Tessa says there was something else on his mind.
What did he talk to you about?
He told me he took care of whatever, something he was trying to take care of for a long time. He didn't give me details. He just told me that he took care of it. He felt good about that.
When he said that, who do you think he was talking about?
Talking about Ray Wright.
Why would you think he was talking about Ray Wright?
Because he had a problem with that guy. He mentioned on numerous occasions he wanted to get that guy.
It sounded to me like one of the only persons that Bobby could tell about this was Tessa, and so he did.
Bobby's telling you what? He got him?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what he said? I got him?
Yeah.
Everyone knew that Manor was talking about Ray Wright. And then the first time they see him after the disappearance, see Manor, he says, I got him.
In March 2021, prosecutors charged Robert Manor and Victor Gray with the kidnapping and murder of Ray Wright, even though police had yet to find Ray. Both men pleaded not guilty. Manor, facing a life sentence without parole.
Can you hear me, Mr. Manor?
Had a very different story to tell.
I'm innocent.
You had nothing to do with the murder of Ray Wright.
Nothing to do with it.
It was still a missing person, but we all assumed it was a homicide.
Did they tell you at any point, we believe your brother is dead?
Yes. Maybe 3.5 years in.
During those agonizing years, Ray Wright's family, one by one, eventually came to the same conclusion. Ray was no longer alive. And their grief was compounded by not having his body to bury.
That's definitely still a source of pain for us. There was no laying him to rest. Like, he doesn't get the send away that he deserves.
Prosecutor Matt Chisholm hoped to provide the family a measure of justice by convicting Robert Manor and Victor Gray. Approaching trial, Chisholm's crucial concern was the credibility of his witnesses.
You've got witnesses who have a history of drugs and drug use. Does that create a complication with the jury?
Yes, all these witnesses had significant credibility issues.
Including another witness who had come forward, Victor Gray's cellmate, Chris Mitchell.
Well, I started off talking to him, and I'm real comfortable talking to him.
In an audio-only interview, Mitchell says Victor Gray told him about Ray Wright's tortured final hours in Bob Manor's house.
What did Gray tell you?
He delivered dude to Bobby. Alive, though.
Mitchell claims Victor Gray told him there was plastic sheeting laying on the floor.
Plastic everywhere.
According to Mitchell, Gray said Manor had Ray Wright poisoned.
He poisoned him.
Mitchell says Gray also told him that Manor had Ray's body dismembered.
Cut the body up.
Did he tell you what they did with it?
No, he didn't tell me none of that.
Victor was your accomplice in this kidnapping and murder plot.
There's no connection whatsoever with me and Victor before the incident.
Robert Manor spoke to us from the Sacramento County Jail.
They searched my house. They tore the carpet up. They did everything like that. There was no DNA found.
Well, because you put plastic all over the floor.
He was good at covering his tracks. He got other people to do the dirty work.
People like Victor Gray, says Chisholm.
We find all the evidence of Ray Wright's death.
In Victor Gray's van.
The cleanup is done. And Victor Gray tells you that on the jail call.
Thank you.
In a jailhouse visit with his wife after the high-speed chase with police, Victor Gray made a powerful admission, says Chisholm.
He almost kind of confesses to his wife and brings his wife into the know.
Clean up the scene or whatever. I had to clean up, you know what I mean?
He said, I had to clean up the scene. As if he was almost bitter about it.
Such a mess, me. Yeah, but he played me, he used it.
We believe that Victor was supposed to be paid $10,000.
He was pissed off because he didn't get paid by Bob.
That's why prosecutors believe Victor Gray wrote the 3-page letter found on his cell phone. In it, he said, I'm done waiting and need a fat package today, meaning the money Gray believed he was owed. He told Bob Manor to take care of him because he had hand-delivered you your revenge. But Manor never paid, Chisholm says, so Victor Gray decided to deliver some revenge of his own. He was on his way to Manor's house with all the Ray Wright evidence still inside the van, according to Chisholm. That's when police tried pulling Gray over.
Had Victor Gray been paid, then maybe he's not driving across town with this treasure trove of evidence in the back of the van.
The trial finally began in March 2023, more than 5 years after Raymond Wright went missing. Since there was still no body, the case had become a no-body homicide.
No-body cases are tough to prove. You lose a lot of information by losing the body. We developed every single lead possible in order to prove this case.
As Chisholm fully expected, the credibility of his witnesses came under relentless fire.
The thrust of the defense was these witnesses are saying whatever the cops want them to say in order to help themselves.
I'm terrified of them. They're dangerous people. They have guns.
But Katie Bernard, who was granted immunity and never charged with the crime, emerged as a star witness, says Chisholm, for her damaging testimony about Gray's involvement and Manor's admission.
And it was something that Manor was trying to keep under wraps, even though that he said it to her. It was something that she was to take to her grave.
In court, Manor and Gray's defense teams zeroed in on the prosecution's lack of direct physical evidence against Robert Manor and the absence of a body.
I reminded the jury that it'd been 1,889 days, and no one on the face of this earth had seen Ray Wright.
And this one was magical. Like, he spent hours on that.
The trial, says Peggy, left her imagining the unimaginable, Ray's final moments.
It's even worse to find out what it must have been like at the end for him, how scared he must have been. He knew what was going to happen.
After an 8-day trial, the jury got the case.
I remember like squeezing Haley's hand and like thinking I was gonna throw up, like while we were waiting for the verdict.
What do you make of the evidence against Manor and Gray? See a timeline of the investigation at 48hours.com.
How long before you got word there's a verdict?
The jury was out about 4 hours.
It was late afternoon on March 17th, 2023. The verdict was in.
It was the most gut-wrenching day of my life.
Robert Manor and Victor Gray were found guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping.
But it didn't bring him back. So it was like, it was a bittersweet victory.
It's unthinkable that someone would do something like that. Like, you can't imagine that your loved one would be swept off the earth like that.
April 28th, the day of reckoning for Manor and Gray. Before hearing their sentence, they heard from Ray Wright's family.
I said, my dad will be in heaven, like amongst the angels, like where he belongs, and you'll be in prison for life where you belong.
We'll never be the same, none of us. You just can't imagine how it impacts a family.
Manor and Gray were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Gray never responded to our request for an interview, but Robert Manor insisted there had been a miscarriage of justice.
I did not have anything to do with Ray Wright's disappearance at all.
Ray Wright's body has never been found.
No.
Where did you bury him?
I never buried Ray Wright. I never chopped Ray Wright up. I never had anything to do with Ray Wright's disappearance or murder. Nothing.
He has a family that deserves answers. They want to know why. Why did you do this?
I did not do this.
And there was something else Manor wanted to say. He claimed it was Victor Gray and Katie Bernard who had plotted to set him up by kidnapping and killing Ray Wright.
They came up with this and tried to come and ask me for money.
Gray and Bernard tried to extort Manor for $20,000, he says, a claim that was never raised in court. Manor was making it for the first time during our interview.
What do you make of that argument?
Wow, that's a whopper, right? There's no proof of anything like that.
Chisholm argues it makes much more sense that Manor was the mastermind.
You also have this monster motive. Revenge.
Let the evidence speak for itself. It's not the people that gone on there said the same exact phrase. You know, I got him. I didn't hit nobody.
The remnants of Ray Wright's life, these silent witnesses, did speak loud and clear.
His famous yellow raincoat that he had had for like 15 years, like soaked in blood.
Yeah, I think seeing his broken glasses is what
that killed us.
Sealed the deal for me.
Haley says even her young daughter, Ashton, was overwhelmed by losing Grandpa Ray.
She always thought people were gonna go missing. I caught her singing in the dark songs that she would make up about where her grandpa went.
I hope we did enough for the family. Until we find the body, it's still an open missing persons case with the Rockland Police Department.
At the end of the day, do you believe justice was served?
Yes, justice was served. It gives this family somewhere to start over.
Consumed by Ray's disappearance and death for years, friends and family decided it was time to celebrate his life.
I'm glad you all are here to share these times with us. Ray was, to me, my first, best, and forever friend.
On this day, June 17th, day 1983, since he went missing, Ray Wright's presence filled the room and the hearts of those who loved him.
We love you, Ray.
How do you want your dad to be remembered, Haley?
Exactly how he is remembered. Lovable, accountable, creative, thoughtful.
I have never met anyone like my dad. Like, I definitely used this whole event as motivation to do better. It's all like a testament to my dad.
I hope he's, at peace, free as a bird.
A famous therapist murdered.
I just was woken up by screaming.
And now new evidence and clues reveal the chilling truth.
How creepy is that?
Crazy creepy.
It hit home how dangerous it really is for women.
48 Hours, Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
It is farm country, horse country, bucolic, upwardly mobile, wealthy type of community, affluent. It's a quiet place.
Tiny, unassuming house. Just a simple farmhouse.
Colts Neck has a lot of these.
Yes.
This beautiful little farmhouse with this beautiful farm star, in the middle of it.
In July of 2013, I was an assistant prosecutor in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Donna Anchaco was alone. She had just gone to bed for the evening.
An intruder came into her house and attacked her, stabbing her repeatedly.
911, where's emergency?
Oh, my name is Donna Anchaco. I just got stabbed.
Where are you?
Really bad. A kid just came in and stabbed me.
Okay,
I think he hit my heart. I'm pouring, gushing blood.
Okay.
I'm losing consciousness.
Keep your eyes open. Donna? Donna?
I was driving home. It was maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30. As I pulled up closer, I saw big SUVs, cop cars, lights flashing everywhere. I was like, where is my mom? And they were like, well, she has been attacked and she's on her way to the hospital. They couldn't tell me whether she was alive or if she wasn't.
I was new into major crimes. I didn't have the experience that some of the older detectives, so I had never seen that much blood before.
Why would somebody do this? Who did this? What did she ever do to anybody,
On that night, in the early morning hours, we got a 911 call from a worker from this restaurant.
About how far from Donna's house are we standing right here?
This is about an 8-minute drive.
They called because they saw a subject walking through their drive-through.
Average attention, please.
One of my customers were in drive-thru were approached by a man with no shirt but had a knife in his hand.
Knocking on windows, carrying a knife. One of the witnesses who saw the young man, she agreed to come in and give us a sketch.
Everybody was asking about the police sketch. It was in every store. People were frightened.
Can you tell me about the tip?
I get a call. The woman on the other end says that she's calling about the stabbing in Colts Neck. She said, I think my cousin may have something to do with that.
Tiny Colts Neck, New Jersey sits just 50 miles from New York City. But it might as well be a world away. So in July 2013, this quiet community was rocked by news of a violent home invasion where the victim was stabbed repeatedly. The only thing more shocking?
My name is Donna Angshako.
The victim survived.
I lost, in total, close to 3/4 of the blood in my body. There's no earthly reason why I'm alive. None.
If I had asked you at the time to give me a list of 100 things you're worried about, where would a home invasion been?
Oh, no, never.
Donna worked for a company that brokered fuel for ships on the nearby Jersey shore. She and her daughter Kirsten lived in this farmhouse on the edge of flower fields.
She was 20 when she had me, so we're only 20 years and 1 day apart.
Friend Sharon Sharp hired Donna decades ago.
Kirsten had just been born?
Yeah, Kirsten was a baby. I thought she was really brave, being a single mom, very young.
I was by her side all the time.
Kirsten, who now works as a welder, recalls what life was like just prior to her mother's attack.
We were going to the gym multiple times a week. Not only was she like mentally strong, but she was physically strong.
She was so fit. She did Tough Mudders with Kirsten.
I like that competition. I like to show strength, physical strength. Things couldn't have been any better at that time.
That's when Saturday of July 4th weekend rolled around. Monmouth County Detective Andrea Tazi says they were having a heat wave.
It was humid, but we had no rain or anything like that. I mean, it was a dry night.
So Donna
had her windows open, yes. She had her windows open just to obviously to circulate air.
Kirsten was out at a party. So I was home doing laundry. I'd say about 11:30. I decide I'm gonna get ready for bed. I let the cat out. I went and brushed my teeth.
But just as she was drifting off to sleep,
I heard what I thought was the cat. I heard something, and I remembered, oh, I forgot to let the cat in.
without turning on any lights, Donna headed downstairs to open the front door for her cat.
But instead, when I opened the door, I saw someone standing there. In the split second after seeing this person on my porch, I saw the knife. He was trying to cut into the screen of the window that was right next to the front door.
She says she didn't recognize the young white male standing right in front of her, holding a large knife.
I tried to slam and shut the door. My fingers were protruding out. He stuck the knife through the opening and cut my finger, so that I immediately let go of the door, and then he pushed his way in. I'm backing into my kitchen. We're face to face. It didn't register to me that he was actually going to stab me.
But without a word, that's exactly what the stranger did.
He slashed my cheek, and you can see that here, and actually it starts back here. There was no way to process that that happened.
Donna's attacker came at her with the knife again.
He then slashed 3 times on this side of my neck.
She tried grabbing the knife, but only cut her own hand in the process.
Did you feel like you were dealing with somebody who was really strong?
No, but I felt like he was very sure. Like he was very in control of himself.
Donna was starting to weaken from the injuries.
I felt like my legs were going to give out. So I braced myself against the corner of my bathroom right next to the front door.
Sure enough, she slid down to the floor.
I was in fetal position, and I'm bleeding. And he came over, and it was kind of like he was playing, you know, with the knife and just started jabbing at me. So that's when he caught me here. And he got me in the back of my neck here.
Finally, Donna's attacker spoke to her.
This was when he decided to ask me for my car keys and if I had a lighter.
A lighter?
Mm-hmm. I just answered him. There's a lighter in my purse, and my purse was on the table back in the kitchen. So he went over and was rummaging through my purse and got the keys, got the lighter.
Donna's assailant ended up taking her entire purse with him, but not before returning one last time to Donna, still bleeding on the floor.
He said, "You dead bitch," and plunged the knife into my chest.
Once he plunges the knife in and then removes it, what does he do then?
He just walked out the door.
With no neighbors in earshot, Donna knew she must get help, somehow.
Your phone isn't in reach.
No, my phone was upstairs in my bedroom, charging.
Donna had no landline in the house, but even as the blood was draining rapidly from her body, she had one pressing concern above her own survival.
Kirsten could come home and find me. I just didn't want her to have to experience any level of the horror that I had just gone through, or any other levels in finding me there, dead.
So this is a mother's instinct as pure as it gets.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
You know you have to get upstairs if you're going to be able to make a call for help.
Right.
How do you get up those stairs?
So that I don't know. There was divine intervention that helped me up those stairs. No doubt. No doubt in my mind.
A mother disappears. Evidence points to homicide. The suspect is gone too, leading U.S. Marshals on a relentless manhunt. The chase is on.
Justice is coming.
48 Hours, tonight on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Being an FBI agent is not just a job.
The city's under attack.
It's a life.
We're hunting a serial killer. The life we chose. People are in danger.
It only works if we're doing it together.
Teamwork.
Cover me. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, my whole team winning. Every member clutch, watch the whole team glisten. Yeah, my whole team winning. Ain't no way to stop us when we be out on a mission.
The FBI's new episodes Tuesday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
We know how his story ended. Now see how it all began. NCIS Origins, coming CBS Fall.
She's a tiny little woman. You have to imagine that many stab wounds. and she just willed it. She was not going to die there.
Former Monmouth County Assistant Prosecutor Lori Gerhardt says Donna Angshako was determined her daughter Kirsten would not come home to find her dead. She knew she had to get to her cell phone upstairs.
I don't remember my feet or my hands actually touching the stairs. The energy that it took for me to get up off the ground and up those stairs, I was definitely guided.
The amount of strength that goes into that is just unimaginable.
But the motivation was you.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe I was there, guiding her in spirit.
Once Donna made it upstairs, she faced a new challenge after peering out her bedroom window.
She had a car sitting right here?
Right, she had a car sitting right in this area.
I could still see the car was there, and I could see the car was on and he was in it. If I take my phone off the charger, it's gonna light up. He's gonna see the light.
Afraid her attacker would come back for her, Donna did her best to hide the light of the phone. Then, just getting it to work became the next hurdle.
My hands are covered in blood, my touch screen. I was trying to swipe and swipe, so I ended up having to wipe my hands off, wipe the phone off, wipe it down on the bed, and then I was able to do the touch screen and get through to 911.
Oh, my name is Donna Angshako. I just got stabbed really bad. Some kid just came in and stabbed me, and he stole my car.
Okay. Just stand up on me, okay? Where did you get stabbed?
In the neck, blood is gushing out, and in the chest.
Detective Andrea Tazzi says Donna's ability to place that call despite her injuries was amazing. But then Donna did something even more extraordinary. She gave a detailed description of her attacker.
Okay, do you know what he looked like?
Yeah, he was probably about 17. White, real skinny, curly hair. Blonde, dirty blonde hair. Backpack.
It was pretty chilling to listen to Donna and be able to hear her accurately talk about this is what happened, this is what he looks like.
I'm losing consciousness.
And then hear her fade out.
Donna? Donna? Hello, Donna? Donna?
Yes, ma'am. I think I just passed out for a minute.
Police and paramedics arrived less than 8 minutes after Donna dialed 911, but her attacker had already fled. Donna was rushed to Jersey Shore University Medical Center and into trauma surgery. It would be a few more hours before Kirsten arrived home from her party to a house surrounded by flashing lights.
I saw the caution tape and that her car was gone.
Police told Kirsten what happened to her mother.
You were deeply shaken.
Oh yeah, I remember at one point my knees buckled. They had the SUV, the undercover cop car, the trunk was open. So I was like, can I sit here? Because I feel like I'm gonna pass out.
As Kirsten was processing the news, an all-out manhunt had already begun for Donna's assailant. Detective Tazzi says another 911 call had come in shortly before Donna's attack.
I was going to pick up my daughter, and there was a kid hitchhiking.
From a driver who saw someone walking along the road near Donna's house.
They saw a young man with a backpack and khaki pants. He was walking close to the fog line and kind of stepping into traffic, and she felt that he was kind of a hitchhiker.
He was on the northbound side, walking southbound, and I'm afraid he's going to get hit by a car. How old about? I'm going to say like 18, 19, 20, something like that.
She was concerned because she just thought that maybe he needed help in some way.
And was a car dispatched?
Yes. They didn't find him, though.
Still, the Good Samaritan driver had inadvertently given the investigation its first lead.
I felt that the hitchhiker was my person. It was too coincidental for that time of the night in that area for somebody to be walking, and then 15 minutes later, Donna's calling say that she was stabbed.
And there was about to be another tip, not long after Donna's 911 call, from a fast food restaurant 5 miles from her house.
They saw a subject walking through their drive-through, knocking on windows, carrying a knife, and it looked like it had blood on it.
Employees from the Taco Bell quickly called police.
You have any description of him?
Yeah, he was wearing, you know, like those army pants, and he had no shirt. He was white with like really like bushy hair, but it was like long, like the skater type hair.
How old was he?
I don't know. He looked like he was like 18.
Police rushed to the Taco Bell and started canvassing the nearby shopping center. They didn't find their suspect, but they did find something else.
So there had been a bolo put out on Donna's vehicle.
Be on the lookout.
Right. And in the process of looking for this person here, they found the car.
Donna's stolen car, this BMW, had been ditched behind a movie theater.
It was lights on and it was running. So it clearly was an abandoned vehicle.
Tazi says the car would become crucial.
There was blood all over it. And so we were hoping that we would get some kind of DNA evidence of our suspect.
Did you?
We did.
Sharon Sharp will never forget the dread she felt when she arrived at the hospital to see her friend Donna Angshako, only to be told she wasn't there.
I'm picturing the color draining from your face and the air leaving your lungs like...
Totally. No, this cannot be. There's no way. She has to be here.
Did you think maybe she had died?
Yes.
It turned out, with her attacker still on the loose, the hospital had admitted Donna under an alias to protect her. Sharon was allowed to see Donna the next day.
An intensive care room I've never seen before. It looked like an enlarged, massively enlarged cockpit wall, because there were tons of machines behind her, and she looked almost like a puppet.
Surgery was 7 hours, I believe.
Despite losing 3/4 of the blood in her body, trauma surgeons had saved Donna's life, but at a tremendous cost. You may find the pictures you're about to see disturbing.
I pretty much looked like a living cadaver. I had 37 stitches on my face and neck, 38 staples in my chest, 7 stitches in my hand, and now internally my sternum is wired shut.
And as for that final stab to Donna's chest just before her assailant left,
it missed my heart by the edge of a dime, is what I remember them telling me.
the edge of a dime.
When she talks about the margin that the knife missed her heart by?
Yeah, if she was any slouched over, any more, that would have been it.
Kirsten says as soon as her mother was able to talk, she had one simple request.
I remember her saying, "All I smell is this blood in my hair. Can somebody please wash my hair?"
Sharon says they got permission, and then she and two of Donna's family members did their best to wash Donna's hair as she lay in her hospital bed.
We were determined to see if we can make her smile. So we turned it into a ridiculous idiot session with 3 of us, like a factory line. We laughed through our tears, and anytime anybody would get too serious, we would make it funny.
But her hair was far from Donna's biggest concern. She was sure her attacker would find her and finish the job.
She was convinced that he was in the hospital, and we kept telling her, "No, you're here under an alias."
I survived. I stood face to face with him. I could 100% positively identify him. He's coming back for me.
Detective Tazi says they were pretty sure the young man knocking on windows at the Taco Bell drive-thru shortly after Donna's attack was their suspect. Within 2 days, a customer who saw him met with a police sketch artist.
And was able to provide pretty great details on the person she saw that night.
Investigators then took the sketch to the hospital.
What did Donna say when she saw that sketch?
She said, yeah, it was incredibly accurate. She tweaked it a little bit. She said that, yes, that looks like the person who stabbed me.
His curly blonde hair, he was like a surfer kid. or a skateboarder or something like that.
Former Assistant Prosecutor Lori Gerhardt says the sketch of the suspect was soon plastered all over Monmouth County and on law enforcement social media.
So people are obviously talking and trying to figure out, do we know him? Where is he from? Who is this kid? And it's scary because you like to have a sense of security in your community.
Investigators reviewed the cameras of stores in the shopping center near the Taco Bell to see if they'd get lucky and spot their suspect, hoping the more images they had, the more likely the chance of identifying him.
We were trying to go back and look at video from various businesses to see the description and really to put out the bolo, like this is who we're looking for.
Security cameras had captured the suspect once again.
The surveillance we got from the store over there was from the inside the store, but it was pointing outwards.
I see. And it definitely caught him.
Oh, yeah, you could see him walking.
Wow.
As police kept looking for the suspect, Donna was turning a corner, at least physically. Amazingly, after just 4 days, Donna Angshako was released from the hospital. Sharon says that was all due to the training Donna had done prior to the attack.
Clearly, she's very physically fit. She couldn't have survived this if she wasn't.
It's an amazing thing. You were out in 4 days. But as you leave the hospital, you are also walking back into a world where whoever did this to you is still out there.
Right. But also, I wasn't going back to the farm. I wasn't going back to my house. No, there was no way.
In fact, Donna would never step foot in her house again. She and Kirsten moved in with family living in New Jersey. Then, just 8 days after the attack, not long after the police sketch began circulating, Detective Tazi's phone rang.
I take the call, and the woman on the other end says that she's calling about the stabbing in Colts Neck. I said, okay. I said, how can I help you? And she said, I think my cousin, Brennan Doyle, may have something to do with that.
It was the first time Tazi had heard the name Brennan Doyle. He was just 16 years old. His cousin told Tazi word was going around her family that Brennan was involved in the Colts Neck stabbing. The cousin had seen Brennan just days prior to Donna's attack.
Between July 3rd and 6th, because he was up in Connecticut for her wedding with his family.
He had attended her wedding.
He attended her wedding, and she was able to provide us a picture of what he looked like during the time he was up there for the wedding.
The photo she sends is Brennan with long curly hair wearing camouflage shorts, looking very much like the kid in the sketch, and more importantly on the videotapes.
Brennan's resemblance to the sketch all around town was about to become even more important because of what the cousin told Detective Tazi happened a few days later.
She was staying at Brennan's family's lake house in New Hampshire as a wedding gift. And Brennan, his brother, and the mother showed up there unexpected.
Hang on. This woman is in Lake Winnipesaukee. She's on her honeymoon?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, there's Brennan, Brennan's mother, Brennan's brother, crashing her honeymoon?
Yes, and the dog.
But what was even more surprising was Brennan's appearance.
Brennan's hair was cut.
The next time she sees him, he's cut his hair.
Yes.
So that's a big red flag.
Yes.
Brennan Doyle's cousin told investigators that Brennan showed up just days after Donna's attack, hundreds of miles from home, with his hair suddenly cut short, similar to this. Like Donna, the Doyle family resided in Colts Neck. Former Assistant Prosecutor Lori Gerhardt.
We lived in a very nice house, 2 sons, a mom and a dad. The life of a typical Colts Neck teenager, it's a life of wealth, it's a life of privilege.
Doyle was a student athlete on wrestling and hockey teams. Detective Tazi started digging into his background.
He had never been arrested. There was never any charges filed against him prior to our investigation.
According to the prosecutor's records, police had been called to the Doyle house for what they referred to as family conflicts. The location of the home would turn out to be very important.
Where did Brennan live?
So if you make a right up here and you go up maybe a quarter of a mile on the left.
So that's close.
Yeah.
The teen and his family lived within walking distance of Donna's house, up the very road that driver had reported seeing someone she described as a young hitchhiker just prior to Donna's attack.
I'm afraid he's going to get hit by a car.
When does the Doyle family return to Colts Neck?
Later in July.
With Brennan and his family back in town, Tazi reached out to the family, saying investigators were canvassing the neighborhood.
What happened when you went to the house?
We spoke with Mrs. Doyle. She was nervous. Her voice was cracking and...
Did this raise an eyebrow for you?
It did. We asked if Brennan and his brother could come and look at the composite sketch and if they had any idea who that person might be on the sketch.
Did Brennan come out?
He did.
Tazi says she wanted to see Brennan's hair to confirm what his cousin had told her, that it had been cut much shorter. It seemed the teen tried to stay a step ahead when he came out to greet the detective.
He was wearing a hat. He was wearing a baseball hat.
I think wearing a baseball cap was a calculated move.
It might have been, but it didn't work.
You could tell his hair was cut short.
Next, Tazi showed Brennan the police sketch of the suspect, the same one Donna helped tweak to look just like her attacker.
How did he react?
He looked away. He looked at it, looked away, and said, I don't know. I don't know. He was nervous and he was scared, and he got very quiet.
There is a reaction. Eyes are down, no eye contact. People are nervous. Mom starts redirecting the conversation.
Doyle's family and his attorney denied our request for an interview. We asked CBS News consultant, defense attorney Matt Troiano, to study the case file.
And I think that probably confirms what they believed going in.
Brennan's odd behavior and resemblance to the sketch and video evidence may have been striking, but with nothing else to go on yet, Tazi thanked the Doyles for their time and left.
Did you know that was your guy?
I was pretty confident that we were on the right track with him. But we also have a duty. We had other leads that were coming in, so we were doing a lot of follow-ups.
As investigators worked the case, Donna was struggling. Weeks after the attack, the reality of what had happened to her had taken hold.
I lost everything that night. I lost my home, had nowhere to go. I lost my car. They took it into evidence.
Donna, you lost more than half your blood.
Exactly. I lost a lot.
Donna says that's when, in addition to her physical recovery, she faced a new challenge.
Symptoms of PTSD started to show up. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I don't care about anything. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm, every emotion under the sun at any minute. I felt like I was going crazy. I was always thinking, I don't know who this kid is, but he climbed through the window in that second that I fell asleep, and now he's hiding in the closet, kind of crazy thoughts.
Sharon Sharp says Donna's fear meant even friendly visits required a new protocol, including announcing her arrival every step of the way so as not to trigger Donna.
I'm gonna come around the hedges now, and I'm gonna enter the backyard. I'm gonna be touching the gate in 3, 2, 1. I would shake my keys first, which had bells on them. Say, it's me, Sharon, I'm coming.
The investigation lasted through the summer of 2013. Brennan Doyle remained the only likely suspect. Detective Tazi says investigators took the next step in September.
We got a warrant to obtain his DNA, his fingerprints, photographs of him, just things that are personal to him.
When the results came back,
there's a fingerprint match, then ultimately there's a DNA match.
Brennan Doyle's DNA was a spot-on match to unknown DNA found in Donna's car in a number of places.
11 different DNA samples and pieces of evidence found in that vehicle, and really, there's no reason why Brennan Doyle's DNA should be in this woman's vehicle. He's a stranger to her.
One more crucial piece of evidence was found in early October in the most unexpected spot.
Repairmen were servicing an air conditioning unit that was on the top of the strip mall. They found the knife on the roof right near the air conditioning unit.
A knife, looking weathered as though it had been there for months, found on a bowling alley roof in the very same shopping center where the Taco Bell was located and where Donna's car had been abandoned.
How important was the knife?
It ended up being very important because the knife was from a set. We determined that that knife matched another knife that we knew came from the Doyle household that had been taken months earlier.
Through a twist of timing and fate, the Colts Neck police already had another knife from the Doyle home, taken after police were called to the house a few weeks prior to Donna's attack, following an altercation between Brennan and his brother.
There's a knife that's apparently used by the younger brother in a threatening manner. Police are called, police take the knife, and the situation ends.
There was no charges or anything that came of it, but they secured the knife in their evidence vault. It was the same brand name, the same look. It was a silver knife.
It was from the same collection.
Correct. That was kind of the icing on the cake to get a search warrant. They had moved during the course of this investigation, so we got a search warrant for their new home.
The search of the new Doyle residence, also in Colts Neck, turned up the rest of the knife set matching the one found atop the shopping center. In late October 2013, Brennan Doyle was arrested.
What kinds of charges was he facing?
Serious ones: attempted murder, carjacking, weapons possession. These are the most serious of crimes that we have.
What do you make of the evidence against Brennan Doyle? Take a look at the complete investigation at 48hours.com.
Months after Donna's brush with death, her alleged attacker, Brennan Doyle, was in custody, facing 6 counts, including attempted murder and carjacking. He pleaded not guilty.
And you have to look at the seriousness of the offense.
The prosecution felt the crime warranted trying Doyle as an adult, even though he was 16 at the time.
And in juvenile court, Brennan is looking at 4 years maximum in a youth detention facility. In adult court, he's looking at up to 30 years.
A judge would rule in Assistant Prosecutor Gerhardt's favor, but there was a catch. Doyle would now be entitled to post bail, set at $760,000, which he did.
When you heard he was out, did all of the fear come rushing back?
It wasn't so much fear as it was anger that he was even allowed to be bailed out.
The thought of running into Doyle terrified Kirsten. She says he even haunted her dreams.
I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. I had no idea until I was like falling asleep and all I see is his face.
As prosecutors developed their case, the details of what happened that horrific night began to emerge.
What does Brennan Doyle say happened the night of July 6th, heading into the morning of July 7th, 2013?
Mushrooms. He says he was under the influence of hallucinogenic mushrooms.
According to investigative reports he examined, Matt Troiano says that on the night of Donna's attack, Doyle claimed he was losing touch with reality and had gotten into a fight with his father.
He has a knife in his hand, Dad kicks him out, and he kind of loses his mind, makes bad decisions.
Police thought it was likely that Doyle, who lived a short distance away, approached Donna's home looking to steal her car.
I don't know if his intent was to kill Donna. Certainly when he started stabbing her, that became his intent.
To me, what he's doing is he's getting rid of the witness.
Gerhardt believes Doyle did not act like someone incapacitated by drugs. Doyle drove 5 miles to that shopping center after leaving Donna's house.
This kid manages to ditch a knife. He abandons the car, and that's not a kid who's so high on mushrooms he doesn't know what he's doing.
Troiano says while a lot of the evidence against Brennan Doyle was strong, the knife, the security camera videos, one thing put this case over the top.
What is going to seal the fate of this boy, this kid, is that there's DNA in her vehicle that links to him. It's indefensible.
But as it turned out, there would be no need for a defense. In August of 2015, Brennan Doyle agreed to a plea deal. In return, the prosecution dropped all but the two most serious charges: carjacking and attempted murder.
It was very important for me that he admit his guilt. If he took the plea, he would have to confess his guilt to the court.
In October 2015, Brennan Doyle, now 18 years old, appeared in Monmouth County Superior Court for sentencing. Donna, who'd attended every court appearance, was there to face him one last time.
Even though I felt overpowered by fear, I wanted him to see me as strong and as a survivor.
It was an emotional day for Kirsten, there to support her mother.
When you would look at him in court, what do you remember feeling?
Anger. Just very angry. Sorry.
The drugs turned me into a monster that night.
Doyle was permitted to address the court.
I pray and hope her wounds will lessen and she will recover eventually. I am asking you to forgive me. Going to prison will be the hardest thing I will ever have to face in my life. I'm afraid.
Brennan Doyle was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. The law requires him to serve at least 85% of that time.
Justice has to be done on both sides, and we have to be sensitive to that. We have a 16-year-old kid who, for the most part, had absolutely no prior history. The court has a balancing act to do.
Did it feel like justice?
It did not.
What would have felt like justice to you?
More like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, if not longer.
Even with Doyle off the streets, Donna was still struggling. She had found PTSD and domestic violence support groups, but says there were none for victims of random attacks. So in 2015, she decided to create her own, Survivors of Violent Crimes.
The reason we took to the support group was to help each other cope.
Donna connected with fellow survivors, Tiffany Ott and Dana Richards. Together, they held meetings and felt gratified they could help when more survivors joined.
They're finding relief in knowing that they're not alone.
But Donna says her work isn't done. Her future plans include helping victims connect with trauma therapists and offering self-defense classes. As she grows her support group, she's also educating others. She travels to prisons, meeting with inmates, and addresses police cadets so they can understand the victim's point of view.
I got up. I made it up the stairs to my bedroom where my cell phone was, but I got through to 911.
She survives, and she's building a life. How could anyone not applaud that?
Donna says the physical scars that remain are a reminder of the surgeons who saved her life.
This is artwork. They're beautiful artwork. You could either get sucked into the darkness or you just keep going. I did what I had to do to be here today and go another day.
A mother disappears. Evidence points to homicide.
And she's nowhere to be found.
The suspect is gone too, leading U.S. Marshals on a relentless manhunt.
He was using the railways to move around, hopping trains.
The chase is on.
Justice is coming.
48 Hours, next on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.